This is a Headgum podcast.
Hey, buddy. Good to see ya.
How are you?
Good. I'm a little sweaty, so be gentle.
Why are you
just for your
sweating?
sake. I rode my bike here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll sit here.
So you'll sit there, and then I'll sit over there. Is it, or do I stay where I am? Which was
I
it?
think you can stay.
Okay. Great.
Phone's on silent.
Mm-hmm.
I also took one of your drinks.
How long are you in town for?
We leave tomorrow. Actually, I got here Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
I should tell the folks that we're coming to you from London, England, where my guest Rob Delaney is a permanent resident. Do you have your dual citizenship yet?
As of fairly recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Congrats.
I am half British
Wow, nice.
and half American.
Is that a DNA thing? Do you go in for?
Yeah, they do a splicing. You don't really notice much. My foreskin grew back.
Oh, wow.
Because I was circumcised in America, but yeah, they fit you with a new foreskin when you become a citizen. So that's nice.
Yeah.
To sort of.
How do they attach it?
They use it's called it's Gorilla Glue. Do they have the same brand in the US? Okay.
I would have. Yeah. I would have expected. Glue, yeah. Oh wow! So they got to get that right.
Well, it's like a surgical distillation. I think I don't know if you can get it at the hardware store, but it's the same sort of. It has
and
the
you
same
have to bring that to the
isotopes.
Doctors. So you purchase the Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
Bring it to the doctors,
and then together you go to town hall, where after you say
with the doctor, you and the doctor go. Okay.
They put the foreskin on. And
at town hall.
At town hall, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's sterile. I mean, post COVID and stuff, there everybody's pretty. Everybody's hands look clean.
So was such an interesting process, and I've had a couple of experiences with the NHS, which I love, but I didn't know that was the whole thing. So you go to the hardware store, and this is mandatory, yeah.
It's not mandatory. Okay, a couple of things. You can either pledge allegiance to the king or God and the king. My family, we thought that we would do just God and not the king, but in fact, you have to do both. You can either do the king or God and king. We did both, thinking we would only do God. And then foreskin is optional. I've been happy with my circumcised penis for almost 5 decades. Yeah. But I thought, why not, try life with a foreskin? Because that's...
Right.
They don't just circumcise right out of the gate here like they did in America in the 70s when I was born. So,
so did they reattach the?
Yeah, they got my old one.
Oh, boy. Okay, how was that difficult?
Well, apparently the hospital that I was born in Boston had burned down, but a bunch of foreskins and other stuff had been saved, and they were able to. Labels,
it's usually the first thing that they run in and save.
Yeah,
right?
You gotta get the foreskins.
The jar
then after
of foreskins. It's a mason jar, right?
Yeah, it's a mason jar, or like a jarring jar. If you put berries in and mason jar. Why am I explaining to you a mason?
Yeah. And that's Lewis. I want to just make sure. I want to edit out that I'm a Mason because I am a Freemason in good standing, but I'm trying to keep that under wraps. Rob knows, obviously.
Shouldn't have brought it up though, and I want to apologize.
It's all right. That's what editing's for. But yeah, I'm now. I don't know if you got the. If you saw the message I sent, had it spelled out in hot air balloons, but I am sapphire level with a 4th level prefecture Freemason in good standing, Scottish rights.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's tremendous. Yeah, I wish I'd love to know more about that, but I am not a Mason. I have a good friend who is, but he won't tell me anything about it.
Are you referring to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Although you did just tell me some things about it.
Well, my status has increased, but I can't tell you about the handshakes or the conspiracy theories that we put out there.
To keep people safe, really, is what it seems like. Because I think you can know too much.
Yes.
I think, and I'd say there's really only a small percentage of people who need to know any of the real stuff. Real stuff, so I appreciate that.
And well, everybody seems to have figured out about how the Jews run everything, which, we were trying to keep it under wraps, but they run everything. The Special Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Jews run the Special Olympics.
Did not realize that.
I mean, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. In the States, the FDA, all run by Jews. So when you're talking about high fructose corn syrup and the use thereof, Jews.
Yeah, there's positives though. I mean, I'm glad challah has been added firmly to the food pyramid rather than alluded to. It's stated that you got to eat it, at least once a week, or your diet's not complete.
But it doesn't count if you do it like French toast, which I love. Ooh. Challah French toast is great. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's great.
That can't be kosher though, right? Because there's no meat, so I suppose it could be if it's because you can't.
Oh no, it's egg, dairy. Yeah. You can't. Egg and it's not just
dairy
meat.
And meat you can't do together.
Dairy
right?
and meat.
Okay.
What about meat from Darien?
Darien,
Connecticut.
Connecticut. Yeah, no, I would definitely eat that.
You could or couldn't if you're Jewish or kosher. I should say.
I can't say with any kind of authority. I
know all Jews aren't kosher, but do you think all kosher people are Jews?
Well, then now we're going to expose my ignorance. What are the parameters? What separates kosher from halal, for example? Because I know there's a lot of respect both for animals and the way that they're prepared and stuff.
Well, halal is wrong and kosher is correct.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think if we're going to go that way.
All right. Well, you're the authority.
That's actually a good question. I do wonder. I mean, all kidding aside, I wonder what the differences are, and if a Orthodox or an observant, somebody who keeps kosher did get, I wonder if they're okay. You know what? I know it has to be blessed, right? It has to be sanctioned. The kosher, I don't know about halal.
The killing of the animal, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it has to be overseen by a rabbi on the
Is it
take.
just a rabbi? Okay.
Yeah, a rabbi who's clearly, getting paid under the table to just go, yeah, it's fine. So that is the difference.
Okay.
You haven't had somebody in authority. I shouldn't say that is the difference because I don't know about halal.
Yeah, because they couldn't just deem it halal. They couldn't point at it, from through a factory wall and be like, halal. That wouldn't sit well with me.
And it really has to go through you.
I
just want to let people know at home I'm shaking up my innocent juice.
But yeah, you asked if I'm British now, and I am. I am half British, as is my family, which is crazy. We've been here 9 years now, and we've, flirted with the idea of moving back a couple times. That hasn't happened, and I mean, a big motive for becoming citizens was it's a pain in the ass to renew your visas.
Yeah.
And so now we just don't ever have to do that again.
And why wouldn't you? There's no drawback to it, is there?
Not that I can discern. I mean, the countries ostensibly have a tax treaty, so you shouldn't be paying taxes twice. I choose to. But there's not enough penalties that I know about,
Not necessarily penalties, but like drawbacks. I guess.
Right. Yeah. No. Not.
I don't. I'm a British citizen as well. I have dual citizenship.
Oh, amazing! I didn't realize.
Yeah, and I just got it fairly recently, last year. So
wild.
Yeah. And I
so
started
just a couple of Brits shooting the breeze.
A couple of half Brits.
Yeah, this is a very British podcast.
And I love it here, and I spend lots and lots and lots of time here. My wife loves it, and. When the 2020 election was happening, we were very seriously thinking, all right, do we go to, it was either going to be London or Toronto.
Okay.
London, I think we would prefer. I love Toronto too, but London we would prefer, but Toronto would be easier for all the in-laws to see our daughter, and so it was a consideration, and we avoided that bullet, as it were. But now we've got 2024 to deal with, and it's and I've said this to Amber, like, we're in New York.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect us. Whatever shit happens, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But it's all about our daughter. Like, what kind of society and culture do we want to raise her in?
Yeah.
And really, it was about that.
Okay.
I mean, I could. I've lived all over the place. I'm easy.
Yeah.
I could pick up and go
Yeah.
wherever. And because of what we do, both my wife and I, yourself as well, like, we could work here,
Yeah, you
or
really
Toronto,
can.
pretty easily.
Yeah.
I can do stand up anywhere, English speaking country.
Yeah.
So I started to, because my dad's from Leeds.
Okay.
And I started to more actively pursue getting dual citizenship, just in case. And but I never wanted to talk to him. I've been estranged from him since I was a teenager, and he's a piece of shit.
Gotcha.
And I finally found somebody through somebody in Scotland, a service that where I wouldn't have to contact my dad.
Wow.
And if I got him these specific things, like I knew the hospital he was born in.
Yeah.
I knew his parents' names. They were also born in those hospitals, that hospital. And I was able to get a marriage certificate from my mom, and then some other thing, and they were like, okay, we've got enough to do it. So I never had to talk to him.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. And then I got my passport.
Wow.
Citizenship. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow. I wonder how much easier yours was having a British parent than my becoming a citizen process
It was pretty easy. Once I got all the stuff, they were like, this is enough for us to do the research.
Okay.
It's going to take a little bit. We have to go through the records of the hospital in Leeds, and we have to get your great-great-grandfather's something. And it took a little time, but it wasn't
right on.
It wasn't difficult. But
yeah, we did the sort of, not terribly long ago, we thought about moving back.
Where would you go to? Massachusetts?
We would have gone to Los Angeles, which is where we lived for a long time.
Ew! When was the last time you were there?
Last Easter. So April 2022. And here's the deal. We had lived in Santa Monica for many years. Santa Monica being an incorporated city within Los Angeles that is on the ocean. And it's quite nice and walkable and all that stuff. And we'd enjoyed living there for years before we had kids, and then for a few afterwards. But then we didn't live there for a very long time. And we just visited.
I know where this is going.
And we went. But here's the thing. It had just rained for like 2 weeks. And as you know, rain is illegal in California, in that part of California. And so it never rains, but it had. So everything was green instead of brown.
Right.
And so we were like, oh my God, it's green now. And we just saw all these wonderful old friends that we loved so desperately and that we've missed since we've lived here. And so we're like, it's green. We got friends. And, but some things have changed in the last 9 years. And the biggest, most noticeable things are the cost of living has gone up very dramatically there. Doesn't affect us so much, but it does mean that more and more people there are really disgusting rich assholes. I like to be the only one. And so a lot of the people there were really scummy. And then the fires there are getting worse each year. Like when we left 9, almost 10 years ago, season.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask what part of Santa Monica?
Ocean Park, Sunset Park area, you know.
All right.
So, you know, where you can walk to the beach, which we did a lot. But yeah, fire season in Southern California makes it kind of seem unsustainable. And the fact that it gets longer each year, and even if you're not personally on fire, the air quality is so disgusting.
Yeah.
It's like headache
And that's
season.
the best part. That's the best air quality you're going to get in Los Angeles, in the entire Los Angeles County. It's going to be on the west side.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go, like, because it had been, if you hadn't been there in several years.
Yeah.
Because my wife is from there, and she actually, and her, my in-laws, her folks are on, well, I won't say the street, but they're right off Ocean Park, right off.
Yeah.
And she used to live on Rose and on the corner of on 4th, just where off of Rose as you go up the street. And when she kind of left there for good and sold her apartment, the homeless situation was starting to encroach from Venice up to like 3rd and Rose, and it was encampments and things like that. And by the time she left, and we'd go back and visit frequently, either for work or her folks are there, and her dad's getting pretty old, so we're there a little more frequently than we were, and it's like apocalyptic bad, the homeless situation, and severely mentally ill, severely disturbed people.
Oh man.
And it's really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
And I would not have a kid there.
Okay.
I have friends who are having their second kid who did live on 4th. Yeah. And then moved to on the other side of Lincoln.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't take our kids out. They have one kid on the way, and they have another. It's like almost 2. Like, we can't. It's crazy. Just taking the kid out on a stroller. Like they're talking about moving to, like, drastically changing, like going into the woods in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And it's really, really bad there. Really bad.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's it's terrible. And you don't want to live in a place like, obviously, it's nice and sunny if people want to walk around wherever they want to walk around. I mean, I have no truck with homeless people. They got to live too. They have as much right as I do. But it sucks to live in a place where you know that all the power structures just don't give a shit. I mean, people say, you'll hear like, California is the 5th biggest economy in the world or whatever. All right, then sort it. Like, help these people out, house them, treat them. You know what I mean? Like, we know what causes these things. Do the tiniest little something about it. So that was another thing, is like, and again, if we were already there, we might have stayed. But since we were here and so plugged in, it's like, here you've got the NHS, which is just unbelievable, even in its underfunded state. And then no guns. Yeah. You're not going to get shot here unless you're very special, because it's hard to shoot people here.
Those are 2 huge things. Yeah. And you can't just dismiss them. And I, as I said, I've had personal experience with NHS that was fantastic. And we might have even talked about this before, but I was here, I was doing Todd Margaret, and I was having this toothache that seemed to be getting worse and not going away. And one of our producers, her sister, was a dental assistant, and so made an appointment. What's that? What was it? In Bloomsbury, where all the dentist area is, where all the dentists are.
I just go to my local one, so I don't know, but it could be. Why
it's
not?
Just this odd. I find it odd that there's like a lot of dentists in this one, area. But so I went there.
The DMZ, Dental Mouth Zone.
No,
sorry. Please leave, Rob.
And I was just having this kind of general cleaning thing or whatever, and the pain had started when I woke up, and then it just was getting worse, and it was getting so bad that I've been in more pain before, but I've never had anything this. It made me think people would back in the 18th century, they would have killed themselves.
Yeah, the logical thing. It would make most sense to kill yourself.
The thing to get rid of that pain that's inside. It's not like a cut or a broken bone or
your
it's
skull.
Yeah. And it felt like somebody had a cold spoon and was whacking my brain with it. And it was
And you didn't like that.
I didn't like it at first, and then I came.
Okay, yeah.
But
that's not sustainable, so you have to get it treated.
That's not sustainable, yeah. It's like when you are fucking or jerking off and you take a hit of amyl nitrate, and then it's like, wow, it's a great orgasm, but then the headache you have, the pounding headache, you can't keep doing it. You can't do it forever. Worth it? There are only so many gay bars.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was really bad, and I didn't even know how to. It was driving me crazy, and it was. So they went because it was a hygienist lady assistant, and they went, and the regular dentist there wasn't there.
He'd been murdered.
Been murdered. So the first thing we do is we call Sherlock Holmes, who, guess what, is a fake person.
Oh, boy.
It's not a real thing. And so a guy comes dressed up as, quote, unquote, Sherlock Holmes. I see right through it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they ended up getting this guy. I don't know if they took x-rays first or I can't remember the chronology of it, but the in-house dentist wasn't there. So they went out the door, down the street, around the corner to another dentist. He left a patient.
Oh, boy.
Who was just like a regular. He left a patient, came over, excuse me, took a look at the x-rays. He's like, you need an emergency root canal right now.
Wow.
And did it.
Oh, my God.
Left his patient there. And
Just
he's
for
like, we're going to do
hours.
it. It wasn't that long, but it was, at least an hour.
Wow.
An emergency root canal, did all that. The pain went away immediately. And then, put a temporary thing in and put a little temporary cap on there. And the whole process, I think, from start to finish was maybe 2 hours, and just, the pain went away. It was a huge thing. And,
wow.
I could barely even talk, and it was getting worse and worse and worse.
Oh, boy.
And as I said, enough for the guy to look at it and go, okay, we got to do this right now. And then I went downstairs to get a prescription for the medicine and to pay the bill, and I'm pretty sure it was 68 pounds.
Yeah, it's insane.
68 pounds? And they got a dead dentist from down the street.
Yeah. You're ready. You're like, so you're thinking in America, you're like, this will be, okay, at least $1,000,
But, yeah. All right, so there's a addendum to this story. All right, so he fitted me with the temporary. This will get you through. I'm here for another couple months. All right, but as soon as you're done, you got to get fitted for a proper crown. Just the crown. The screws in, the implant, all that stuff. I go back to L.A. And Amber's like, oh, you should see my doctor. You got to go see Dr. Vigil. She's great. She does all my teeth stuff. I was like, okay, yeah, it's just the crown, and
it's pretty much snapping in a Lego piece.
Yeah, you get fitted, you do your mold, and then they make it, and they. So we do that, and nice lady, and that whole process is like 20 minutes, maybe 25, and I want to say it was $5,700.
Jesus. That's amazing. Isn't that charming that I said $1,000? Like, I haven't lived in America in 10 years, and I'm like, maybe could it have been $1,000?
It's, this was 2010. Maybe?
Wow.
2010.
Jesus. That's amazing. And famously, teeth are not part of the body in America, and they're not included in normal health care.
I know Bernie Sanders was, that was.
Where are my teeth?
But he's like, how are teeth not a part of this?
Yeah.
Now I am on a dental plan. I've got great I'm part of two great unions, WGA and SAG-AFTRA, and my insurance is great, but I'm one of the lucky few.
Oh, God, yeah.
Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, I have been going to a therapist off and on for many, many, many years, found it very helpful. Some not so helpful, but then I just left and found another one that was helpful. And I have recently been seeing a therapist, or more aptly listening to a therapist over the internet. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule, which is true. You just have to fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Well, I would hope so. And switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So visit betterhelp.com/senses today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/senses. There's so many people in America who have to work a shitty job that they hate.
Yeah, that they're handcuffed
just because of healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah, I did before I won the entertainment lottery. I had a terrible job just to have the health insurance. I worked in internet advertising. So I bought and sold terrible ads for garbage on terrible websites, and it cost me my health insurance.
What? Give me an example.
A pop-up that was give us your information so we can call you and try to get you a bad auto loan, stuff like that.
So you didn't create these ads, you sold them, or no, you didn't.
Although I got pretty good at help. I'd could give sort of the brief, the design brief, be like, we need this, we need that, we need to capture this information, and I would test them against each other. So yeah, auto loan lead generation, that was one of them. The J-Lo engagement ring that Ben Affleck famously got her a big pink one the first time that they got married.
Yeah.
And we sold a replica. And so I would get paid, a few pennies for each one that people bought of the J-Lo ring replica for $7.
And I'm, excuse me, I'm trying to picture, is it would you drive to an office?
Yep.
And there was
yeah, I drove to a big office by the airport. And it was, we're talking 2003 to 2007. I'm doing this stuff. And just to get health insurance. Wow. And then blessedly, my breadwinner wife, who taught English at Culver City Middle School, was able to get me on her better teacher insurance. And then I was free to drive around LA bombing at open mics. And
a lot of people, I don't think they realize how great of a stand-up you were. I don't know if you're still doing it.
Very kind.
But we did a show together. This is a long time ago, somewhere in South.
Yeah, in London. Yeah,
South London, which I'm not that familiar with South London.
I never go there. I've been twice.
But there was a show that somebody put together.
I go there to do stand-up. It's lovely. South London's amazing. But if you live in North London, you simply just don't go.
I know. And you have to use the word simply.
Yeah.
You simply just don't go.
Brit to Brit.
You simply find a better class of people in North London. And I remember, you're really funny, but I remember somebody, this is a while ago, somebody up front went to take a picture.
Yeah.
with their phone.
Yeah.
And you fucking went off on them
for
5 minutes about the he was like, that picture's worthless. It has no value. It's every time you take a picture, you decrease the current. You went off.
Oh my God.
No, it was great. It was great.
Funny.
It was really funny and really articulated the thing I feel where I go 0 to 60 and I can't even articulate my frustration and annoyance at people can we take this out?
Okay, so let me say though, we are now talking about something that so over the last now, because that would have been I think that was maybe before I lived here perhaps. So let's say that's or have just moved here. That's not less than 9 years ago because I remember it. And in the time since then, when doing stand-up, I went way away from talking to the audience, just kind of in the mindset that if they bought a ticket with money they earned at their job to come here, got a babysitter potentially. Like, I like to give them really just crafted stuff.
Sure,
you know?
I feel the same way. Yeah.
But lately, I had been so averse to talking to audience members, I guess, since that night, that lately I've been getting more back into talking to the audience and just trying to relax into that. And I think I also had a reflexive reaction to British comedians who talk to the audience nonstop. Mm-hmm. And maybe I wanted to differentiate myself a little bit, but I'm being less sort of doctrinaire now, and I will talk to the audience again after a decade of just keeping to myself. It
was well, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. You can talk to the audience and give them a good show.
Totally.
And that's not just in Britain stand-up. But the thing about talking to the audience, I mean, there are people, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Matt Rife.
I only just heard about him and watched a few clips.
I was about to say, he just, for people like me or us, he kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But he is an example of people who do stand-up, like doing stand-up, but they got a quicker acceleration into headlining, touring because of videos, TikTok and Instagram stuff, and stuff where they're doing crowd work, which is, I'm not knocking crowd work. It's fun. It's easy as shit. It's easy, and it's a nice little break sometimes. And and I think people like it because it's of the moment. Yeah. They're experiencing something that they are sensing is unique to that show. And I'm not knocking it all. But it was this thing where, and it's controversial in the comedy community in the States for sure, about comics who, if they don't do 100% of their show doing that, it's 80%, And then some of these guys, and Matt Rife is a good example, and I watched some of the special, his Netflix special, and it's not very good.
Yeah.
It's not terrible, but the thing that stands out is, oh, you're not ready for this.
Okay.
You will be.
Yeah.
But not now. You're not ready.
Okay.
You're not ready to headline arenas.
Yes.
Or large theaters. I mean, you're doing it. People seem to like it, but your material is
not quite there yet.
Not there.
Okay, so I haven't seen the special. I saw a couple clips. I saw it was like a woman gave him a T-shirt. So I saw just the tiniest little bit,
I don't know.
And then a trailer for his stand-up special, which was like a skit. So I can't say anything about his stand-up, honestly. But I will say that in the abstract, there's a risk of, if you're just doing crowd work, people mistaking the sort of thrill that they feel, because what's going to happen, mistaking that with humor. You know what I mean? And I think there's like an analogous feeling. Like, you ever watch like an incredibly clever, clean comedian do something where you're like, ooh, was that naughty? And it wasn't, but it was just so good, that you're like, oh my God, like, certain Brian Regan bits or something. Or I can think of like Sklar Brothers things where like, I'm like, thrilling. And then I'm like, that must have been so naughty, the way that I feel. But it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, that's the type of emotional trickery that I like better, is when somebody does something like so wacky that it activates the naughty part of my brain, and I'm like, oh my God, no, they're just clever. I really envy people who can do that.
Man, not me.
Yeah, no, I'm such a fucking scumbag. I can't help it. It just makes me happy.
Well,
being a piece of shit, it makes me happy.
I feel like I don't deserve to be happy, and therefore, morose. I'm gonna get off my medication. Actually, now that I'm hearing myself say this. I need to be more grumpy.
Yeah.
Actually, for years and years, I was on Zoloft.
Okay.
What I thought was depression was actually diagnosed as anxiety.
Okay.
And that's just out of ignorance, and I didn't know. I just thought, oh, I'm feeling this way and these things, and then after. And it got a little crippling at certain points, and so I got on Zoloft, and made an immediate difference. And I went into it very reluctantly, like, it's going to change me. I won't be funny anymore. And all these things that I thought. I'm talking about like in the 90s.
Okay.
And then when Amber and I started getting serious, which was very quickly, I said, hey, I'm going to go off this medication just so you can see.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go off just so you can see, this is me. And for a long time, I wasn't on it. And then our daughter was born. And it wasn't until she started school that I started going back. And I noticed it after a while. Like, this is like... And it was once she was going to school. That whole thing of like, we got to get out. We have to get out. It's 8:00, honey. I don't care. We can't be like just bad, weird. All my old bad things about and just anxiety taking over. And I'm like, I can't do this to this kid. I'm like, rushing to put her jacket on. Like, who gives a fuck if we're 2 minutes late?
Yeah.
Fucking it's what I'm saying in my head. Chill out. But I can't do it.
In your defense, as a father of 4 children that I had by choice with my wife, like had one that were like, let's have some more. I still freak out in the mornings. And I'm not saying that like you're not, diagnosing yourself correctly or whatever, but just so you don't feel like a monster, I don't know any parents who getting their kids out the door isn't a cross between a military operation and some sort of explosion.
Absolutely. It's my response. Nothing I was doing was making it better. And you have an end goal, which is to get that kid out.
Right.
And what I was doing was not helping.
Gotcha.
And we also started, I started playing video games with her when she was, like 5.5, right? So I have a system, and there's all these great games for kids, learning games that are not just about eye-hand coordination, but that teach you these things. And I was like, I'll play, because she would, some of the ones I'd play, like, you can't watch this, it's blowing something up or whatever. Have you played the video game Non-Binary Hamas?
No, but I immediately half condemn it.
All right. Anyway, oh man. Anyway, and we're playing these kids games, and this is when I knew, like, I got to get back on this stuff. This is, and she's fucking 5.5, 6 years old, and she makes a little mistake or does something which I know is going to set us back. I'm like, Marlo, nope. Don't. Okay, you're not. Give me the controller, and I'm like, I'm with a kid, and I'm just being an asshole, and I knew the combination of all those things, and other, get in the car, do this, and it's actually made a huge difference, and I'm just not like that. But it was all coming to, and I've been fine for. Over a couple decades, and or a decade and a half, I guess. And then I was like, wow, I need to. This is bad. This is not a good way to be with a little kid. Like, well, okay, that's on you. Okay, what? Yeah. And but it's good. I'm glad.
No, I've been on medication since the beginning of 2003. I got sober in the beginning of 2002, so that's almost 22 years ago. And after a year of no alcohol or drugs, my brain and things settled, like I was employable, my body worked, after that year. My brain was like, well, you're not going to drink and do drugs anymore? And I was like, yeah, I can't. I was going to die. And my brain was like, well, check this out. And so then rolled in really suicidal depression. Really bad. And so...
what's the connection to not... So, meaning you didn't have an outlet or an escape or...
So, I think... Because I was... drinking, very destructively. The end of my drinking career culminated with a car accident that no one else was involved in, drove into a building. But when friends and family heard about it, they were like, oh, yeah, we knew that was going to happen. Like, nobody was surprised. So I was really moving in a bad direction. And I think my brain, for about a year after the accident, with court dates, surgeries, rehab, living in a halfway house, I was in like fight or flight survival mode. But when things started to calm down, I really collapsed mentally, emotionally.
I guess what I didn't do when you were talking about that is even think about, because you don't go, okay, I'm going to stop drinking, and then you move on to chapter 3.
Exactly.
So there's that whole year of getting to that point. So it was about a year of like cleaning up and picking up the pieces and stuff. And at the end of that year, my brain just stopped working, which, years down the road, I can look at that and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's fairly, I think, psychology 101, Did you have help?
I did. Yeah. I was going to talk therapy. And after some weeks of talking about, really wanting to kill myself, and the depression had a real physical element too, like physical pain, confusion. I mean, it was very bad. And so suicide really seemed like something that made sense.
Was it a solution to something?
The idea of suicide? Yeah. Stopping the physical pain that came with it. So my psychologist sent me to a psychiatrist, and he put me on medication that gradually, slowly but surely worked, and then kind of gave me back my whole deck emotionally. I could feel all the emotions rather than just one nightmare one. And then it would have been maybe 5 years later, a second episode. And so medication was adjusted. And the second one...
Did that come out of nowhere?
I think that one that would have been in about 2008-ish. And that came from having been unemployed. It came with or from, I don't know, being unemployed for a while and having started doing comedy all the time. And at this point, nobody's like, please do comedy. It's me sending out joke packets to every show all the time and doing multiple shows a night. And I think doing that while very broke and newly married, both my wife and I wanted to have kids too. I think that's, what precipitated that. So a second episode, just as bad. That one didn't last as long because I knew there is on paper a path out of this, and it's being honest about it, talking to people, getting the help that I needed. So since then, I've been on medication. I remain on it. Yeah, I'd love to not take a pill or two every morning, but I do. It works. It allows me to be a present and good dad and husband and worker. I'm way more productive. So yeah, that shit's real. I mean, that's not a newsflash to anybody.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you can, or one can describe their deepest, darkest moments. I don't know exactly what you're feeling, what you went through, but I can only, use myself and my experiences as a reference, and we all have them.
Yeah.
Every single person. They're shared, but they're not shared.
Yeah.
But there's an understanding of like, your situation specifically was wildly different.
Yeah.
Mine was, this thing, and maybe nobody else shared that, but we all get, oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think the solution, I should say, for mankind is much like we put in the States, we put fluoride in the water starting in the 60s, I think, something like that. And, which was a communist plot by the Jews. But we need to put, serotonin up spliff
Yeah.
taker, whatever they're called.
Yeah, and whatever
in the water.
Yeah, and sterilization in certain, zip codes. That
that's different.
is that not what you were saying?
No, that's not what I'm.
Understood.
No, I didn't. No,
Okay.
I think that's
not
wildly
co-signing
different
that.
than what I.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about dosing with soma, basically.
Okay.
Blue pilling people.
Yeah.
You want to blue pill people.
That sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm. That's good juice. All right, Rob. How you feeling about everything?
Okay.
All right. Is there anything you?
Yeah. I mean, is there? Is this smell like other recordings you've done? Do you have?
Well, this is a much bigger studio. Obviously, I do the show out of New York. Sometimes I go do the show out of LA.
Yeah.
But as I said, we're here in London, and then I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah.
What is that? Ombre? Do you call that with the color shadowing?
It's called
No, this is the part. What's the part of this podcast called? Guys describe stuff they don't really understand for listeners, and it sounds nice. It's the best part?
we shrink it to an acronym, so it's GDS. I can't remember what it is. It's very long, but
it's in the song, right?
We're borrowing the London Spotify offices. So
it's pretty nice.
In New York, it's more. I've got more of my knicknacks, and I got my artwork. My artwork would be there. The what do you call it? Logo or the?
That's what I call it.
The thing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the New York team didn't send the thing. Otherwise,
mail your stuff.
Yep. But this is very. I mean, I've never sat at a table. I have like a couch, and a chair, and all that. But it's very much like everything I've been doing, and it got to the point. All right. So the podcast is called Senses Working Overtime, and when I was, for years, people have been saying, and when I say people, it's like my agent, my manager, you should do a podcast. You should do it. And I had zero interest, less than zero interest.
Yeah.
And I don't, not for any reasons that are negative at all. I just don't listen to podcasts. I don't, I don't, my wife, my friends do.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's not how I spend my time or whatever. And I have nothing against them. But
can I say quickly, the last podcast that I was on was a Steely Dan podcast. Because as a middle-aged man, they've become very important to me. And I read a few books about them over the last few years and have really been spiritually rewarded by diving deep. So when asked recently to be on a Steely Dan podcast, I said, oh, yeah.
Oh, you got some tidbits you can share, probably.
Yeah, I mean.
So is it a podcast where it's just about Steely Dan?
Exclusively. Yeah, it's not about anything else.
See, that's a podcast I will not be listening to.
Understood.
Yeah. Now, Foreigner, sure.
Yeah.
But so they're like, okay, all right, I'll do a podcast. And then they're like, what's the hook going to be? And I'm like, no hook. I just want to talk to people. I'm good at talking. I can have a conversation. And said it's like being at the pub and having a few pints and just talking. And they're like, no, you got to have a hook. So I thought and I had nothing. And I was like, I don't know why I need a hook, but fine, fuck it. And then after about 6 weeks, I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll do the senses and, what's the, best, worst, funniest, nastiest, saddest, creepiest thing you've ever, etc. And I even wrote that that's just a jumping off point to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't care. You can tell me about the best clam chowder you ever had. I just don't give a shit. And, I think this is, I'm going to say you're the 11th guest I've had.
Awesome.
And I think in total, I have asked a question about what's the somethingest you've ever somethinged.
Yeah.
3 times.
Oh, well done. Well done.
And I had it, I shouldn't say I had to, but when I cut the trailer for this, and they just started coming out. They came out actually yesterday.
Right
It
on.
was the first one, yeah. And
Who'd you have on it?
Bob.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was great. It was really fun. And they've all been different, you know? And in parts, funny, edifying, poignant sometimes, you know? I've asked those questions, I think, 3 times.
Okay. I have a sort of sense story that happened recently. Can I share it with you quickly?
Absolutely.
And tell me to stop and or leave whenever you need to. But I
stop and leave.
That would be a good line. Stop and leave. A few weeks ago was in Wales with my family. I don't think this is important to the story, but maybe if a listener knows about a weird bacteria in Wales, that'll become important. But I got a little sore on the side of my tongue, and I thought, oh, maybe I bit it. You know, we all bite our tongues from time to time, and it can hurt. And I even do it when I'm going to sleep now. I wake myself up doing it like a monster. Anyway, but this thing started to grow on the side of my tongue, and I was like, this isn't nice. And it was like a big canker sore, and it got to the point that over a few days, it began impeding my speech.
Wow.
It's
getting big.
Yeah. And and the pain is we're getting to where I can't eat. Like I'll take a sip of a smoothie and have to go like crouch to deal with the pain. And so anyway, I went to the doctor and they were like, we don't really know, bodies are, weird. Your immune system could be down. We don't think it's viral, could be. So they gave me antibiotics and they gave me a steroid mouthwash, and which I kept. I don't need it anymore, but I use it so that I can satisfy my wife with my tongue because my tongue is very strong now. But no, they did give me a steroid mouthwash, and it worked. But I didn't eat. I lost weight, and I had to, as I said,
Were you
squat
hungry
while eating. Oh yeah, I was very hungry. But I'd rather starve to death than put something in my mouth. But anyway, it was just sort of a weird one of those things. You thought was maybe bygone. With the Victorian days, and now that we have hygiene and things like that. But no, got a real vicious, weird, old-fashioned thing in my mouth, and it's gone now.
And just going back to the beginning of this discussion. Are you saying Wales, or is that fault?
Yeah, I am tacitly blaming Wales.
Wow.
Now officially that I'm saying it out loud, but it began in Wales, as a lot of things do. And
can you tell me some other things that begin in Wales?
I can tell you that the official flower of Wales is the daffodil. I learned that studying for the Life in the UK test I had to take for citizenship.
What?
Yeah, official flower is the daffodil. Scotland is
what a pointless piece of information that they make you learn.
Oh, I will tell you this though: studying for the Life in the UK test was fun. It was fun. Roger Bannister is the first man.
I know
okay,
that. I know
great.
Roger Bannister.
Good.
But also, when are you? Unless you're doing a pub quiz, when are you going to need to know?
You must know by now that that's a pretty important part of being British.
I have.
Did you not used to run one or have one that you attended regularly?
Yeah, several that I attend regularly, and accumulate. We were talking about this last night. And accumulated so many, coupons or chits or things like I paid for a year's worth of drinking with just the trivia the pub quizzes that we won.
We're lucky to both be busy and have families. So, this isn't an ironclad obligation, but I just had an idea for a show for us. And do you know what Morris dancing is?
Yes.
Yeah. It's just us Morris dancing.
Wait.
That's it. That's the pitch.
I only know that. I never heard of that until I'm almost finished with it, but I started a book called My Search for Warren Harding. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny. Mm-hmm. And Bob recommended it. And he's a really good source of good books. But the guy in it is does Morris dancing. So
Amazing.
that's how I know what it is.
It is fascinating. I mean, I don't really know how you to describe it other than it's like usually old guys in a uniform that's almost Bavarian, dancing around with sticks in a way that to them appears to make sense. To the viewer, it does not so much look like it really involves skill. Yeah, I've seen it live more than once. And but I don't know, maybe we get adopted by rival Morris dancing teams or something. Okay. I don't know, but anyway.
Or we head up rival Morris dancing.
Or we try to bring it to America and get murdered.
Yes. The two things don't have anything to do with each other. We just get murdered.
Yeah.
Welcome to, all right, Rob, I end every show with a question to my guest from my daughter.
Oh, cool.
My 6-year-old daughter. And here is your question. It's from Marlo. And what is the least bad thing that Donald Trump did?
The least bad thing. Let's think. I lived here for his entire presidency, but of course I had access to news. What did he do that wasn't bad?
Or the least bad thing. Like assuming, let's say everything he's done is bad, but what's the least bad thing?
Oh,
and I'm quoting her. That is the question, word for word, verbatim. What is the least bad thing Donald Trump has done?
I mean, he did demonstrate, and I wish more people did this, that you can say what you really believe. I'm not saying he's not a liar, because he is, but he would just let it all hang out sometimes in a way that is refreshing to hear a world leader do. And when you see people doing scumbag stuff in public and they're not brazen about it, I'm kind of like, well, Trump, I do hope he somehow is mulched, but it is refreshing to hear a world leader just, speak off the seat of his pants, whereas other people do more studied stuff to say similarly evil and disgusting things.
Right.
I think you could take a page from Trump. Just say what you feel. Because when you're powerful, you really can. And so he had an understanding of power that I wouldn't mind other world leaders, for our sake and our sanity, employing, because they do a lot more double speak than he did. That said, may he have an embolism tonight.
I'm sure you've seen that famous, now famous New Yorker cartoon with it's all the sheep, and then there's a billboard for a wolf, and it says, "I will eat you," and then the sheep is looking at it going, "He says it like it is."
Yeah. I mean, that's just, there's less like sort of, dissonance for the listener or the viewer with stuff like that. So that can be useful.
Rob Delaney, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to plug coming
up? No, I mean, when this comes out, I mean, I think the strike is over, so I can say, go to the streaming service of your choice. You might find a film or TV show I've done. I've written a couple books that you can read. Please do.
Tell them the books.
Okay. The first one is called Rob Delaney, Mother, Wife, Sister, Human, Warrior, Falcon, Yardstick, Turban, Cabbage. And the second one is called A Heart That Works. And
I had a lot of difficulty reading that book, as I told you.
Yeah.
Where I started to write and then I found it, and I highly recommend reading the book. Don't read it on the plane.
Yeah, there is a danger of crying. A lot of people tell me.
I was crying.
Yeah.
I was crying and I was making noises. And but it's a beautiful book. And
you're very kind. Thank you.
It's very moving and it's interesting because I know you. And I think, even if you don't, you're very intimate with the reader, and the reader gets to know you very quickly, and but it's still like just to be able to put a person to that awful experience, and your wife is, superhero.
Yeah.
And it's oh my gosh, and then when parents and in-laws come, and oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's rough, but it's a really great read, and
thank you.
Something people should experience.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if anybody's listening who doesn't know the story, it's about my son Henry, who died a little bit before his 3rd birthday of a brain tumor, and that was 5 years ago. And yeah, A Heart That Works is the book I wrote about it.
Yeah, it's great, and it's you go into maybe read it in a closet. Or
by candlelight.
Yeah,
and put a towel under the.
Don't read it on a plate.
Yeah.
All right, Rob. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A pleasure as always.
Thanks, David. Take care.
That was a Headgum podcast.